All right, we're going to be looking at lesson 8.6. And in 8.6, we're now going to start taking a look at what happens when we have an actual quadratic equation, and we're going to be having it set equal to 0 still. So we're still working on zero product property, okay? All right, so a quadratic equation is when I have an equation that looks like this: ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So we're just putting the equal 0 on there now. Now, it's really important to note, though, that a has to be a value. It cannot be equal to 0, because if it's equal to 0, this guy goes away, and now we just have a line left over. And most of the things that we're going to be looking at will have some sort of arch to it, okay? It's called parabola. All right, so if we're looking at example number 1 here, very similar to lesson 8.5, okay, in that we're going to still have to go ahead and factor first. These will not be factored for us, so we're going to have to factor first, and then we'll set each factor equal to 0 and solve, okay? So right now, we're kind of reviewing what do we do when we have that 1 out front. Remember how we talked about in our factoring chart, a equals 0, or sorry, a equals 1, okay? And remember, that's just kind of where we came up with factors of this that add up to this, okay? So I've got to kind of think, okay, what are factors of 24 that give me 11? So if you start down your list, 1 times 24, 2 times 12, 3 times 8, and I think we probably have a winner right there. Okay, so again, d plus 3, since it's all positive, it'll all be positive, and d plus 8 equals 0. Okay, so step 1, factor, and now that you've factored, set each part equal to 0. So d plus 3 equals 0, and d plus 8 equals 0. So we end up with -3 and -8. And those would be your answers. Okay? All right, let's go ahead and try the next one. Example number 2. All right, on example number 2, it has to be set equal to 0 first. We talked about that in the last lesson. You have to set these equal to 0 first. And when you do that, you need to make sure that they are in order. Squared, in this case z, and then no z. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and subtract 70 off, keeping it in order. So z squared minus 3z minus 70 equals 0. And again, I'm looking for factors, in this case, of -70. Okay, factors of -70 that add up to -3. Okay, so kind of think about it for a minute. And I think, let's see, if we do 7 and 10, will give me 70, and to get a -3, I need a -10. So I have got z plus 7 and z minus 10 equals 0. So again, set each factor equal to 0, and now solve. So z equals -7 and z equals +10. And those are your two solutions, okay? And keep in mind, we started talking about this last week a little bit. Remember, this is where it would cross the axis. So it would cross at -7, and it's going to be crossing at 10. There will be some sort of arc to it, whether it's up or down, whether it looks like a bowl, or whether it's going up and down like that. We don't know that part yet. But we know that it's crossing at those 2 points, okay? All right, number 3. Now, you still have to set equal to 0, but watch it. Make sure you put this in the right order. So when you bring this 3x over, it has to go into the middle, okay? It has to be in order of x squared plus 3x, because you're bringing it over to the other side, minus 18 equals 0. So just kind of keep in mind here, we are adding 3x kind of into the middle there. Keep it in standard form. It has to be in order. All right, so now again, you're still looking for what are factors of -18 that gets you 3. Okay, and so kind of when I think about that, 6 and 3 comes to mind. And then if I make this guy negative, that'll work out. So I've got x plus 6, x minus 3 equals 0. And now set each factor, once you have factored, set each factor equal to 0. So you end up with -6 and +3. Okay? All right, and of course, it wouldn't be a day if we didn't have our word problem. So let's go ahead and take a look at the word problem. It says the height of a parallelogram is 18 centimeters less than the base. If the area is 175 square centimeters, what is the height? Okay, so there's a couple of things we need to know here. First off, you need to know what a parallelogram is. Okay, if not, you Google it, look it up. Okay, but a parallelogram will be something kind of shaped like this, kind of like a box tipped over a little bit, pushed over. Okay, all right, so now it says the height, so here's my height, comes right down there, okay, is 18 less than the base. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and call the base B, since I really don't know what, I mean, it can be any letter. It can be X or Y, whatever. I'm going to go and call it B. And now I know the height is 18 less, so I'm going to put B minus 18 here for my height. Okay? Now, if you don't know how to find the area of a parallelogram, again, you would need to look that up. Area in this case is base times height, or length times width. Kind of the same thing as a rectangle. And so if I'm looking here, my base is B, and my height is B minus 18. Now, it also tells me that my area is 175. So in this case, I have got it set up, but you need to be careful. While you have factors, is it set equal to 0? If it's not, you still have to get that 175 over to the other side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and distribute the B so I can make it look like a quadratic, and then I'm going to refactor. So right now I've got 175 B squared minus 18B, and now I'm going to set equal to 0. So I'm going to have 0 equals B squared minus 18B, and I'm subtracting the 175 over to the side. Okay? All right, so now, again, we're back to the same thing we've been looking at. What are factors of negative 175 that get you negative 18? Okay? And I went ahead and found out there's 25 and 7 will get you 175. And if I make this negative, that'll give me a negative 18. Again, if you didn't come up with that quickly, you need to be making a list. Okay? So now 0 equals B minus 25 and B plus 7. So now when you set both of those equal to 0, you'll end up with a positive 25 and a negative 7. Now we need to talk about this a little bit. A positive 25 can work. Yes, you can have 25 centimeters here. A negative 7 does not make sense. You cannot have a negative width or length of a base. So if I'm looking at this guy, we're going to throw out. And that's going to happen on word problems where you're going to have to look at the answer and determine what works and what doesn't. So B equals 25 is the only guy that makes sense. Now the question is, what is the height? So if I come back up here, my base is 25. Well, to figure out the height, right, to figure this out, I'm going to have to take 25 minus 18, and I'm going to end up with 7 centimeters. Okay? So my base is 25 centimeters, and my height is 7 centimeters. Now you need to write a sentence on that. So in this case, since it was only asking for the height of the parallelogram, I'm just going to abbreviate that, is 7 centimeters. And that's what we're looking for here. Okay? All right, that concludes notes for 8-6.